And I look at her and I say, how do you choose joy when your heart is breaking in a million pieces? How do you choose joy? The police came, broke the door down, found the inevitable bad news.
Rick Warren's massive bestseller promised to reveal God's purpose for every life and transformed thousands of churches across America almost overnight. It sold over 50 million copies and made Warren the pastor everyone wanted to follow, from presidents to congregations. But beneath the success and sweeping growth lay a story no one expected. Churches divided, traditions lost, and longtime members forced out in the name of change. What happens when a spiritual movement designed to expand faith instead tears congregations apart? Behind the uplifting message was a blueprint that reshaped and, in some cases, diminished what it meant to be church. This is the untold story behind one of the most influential books of our time. The book that changed everything. Rick Warren's book quickly became a phenomenon almost overnight, selling over 50 million copies and reshaping American Christianity in profound ways. The Purpose-Driven Life promised readers an individual journey to discover their God-given purpose through 40 simple chapters, designed to be read in as many days. It became an unprecedented bestseller, featured everywhere from major Christian publications to Oprah's book club, and even found its way into the military and corporations. But behind the staggering sales and glowing praise was a seismic shift that few anticipated. At the heart of this revolution was more than just a book. It was a comprehensive program called 40 Days of Purpose, designed to be adopted by churches across the country. For just under $40, congregations could purchase sermon outlines, small group materials, banners, and even web graphics to run a turnkey campaign. Pastors didn't have to prepare lessons themselves. Everything was scripted and provided by Warren's organization, Purpose-Driven Ministries. This ready-made model enabled rapid adoption but planted seeds for unintended consequences. Within just a few years, more than 30,000 churches signed up, spanning a wide range of denominations: Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, non-denominational, and even some Catholic parishes. These churches began embracing the same messages, the same content, and the same vision, forming a vast network unified around Warren's blueprint. The program's style and approach reached from small towns to major urban centers, effectively standardizing the church experience. But what seemed like unity soon revealed deeper tensions beneath the surface. While some congregations saw new growth and vitality, others experienced division and loss. Longtime members who had worshipped in their churches for decades found themselves alienated. Some were asked to leave when they resisted the changes. These fractures, rarely discussed in popular coverage, became widespread. The story of widespread transformation was also a story of countless churches pushed to the breaking point. The real impact of the purpose-driven movement was bigger and more complicated than just rising attendance numbers. Warren's early prominence fueled the movement's momentum. By 2005, he was training hundreds of thousands of pastors worldwide through conferences and online platforms, promising to mobilize Christians toward global goals. His influence reached political figures and world leaders, and his church in Orange County became a model many wanted to replicate. Yet, in the rush to adopt his methods, churches often overlooked the human cost, the displacement of members, traditions, and identities. What began as a fresh approach to faith and church growth took on a corporate feel. The program encouraged churches to think like businesses, emphasizing marketing, target demographics, and branding. The focus shifted from nurturing long-standing spiritual communities to attracting specific seekers. This pivot transformed not only worship styles, but the very culture and priorities within churches, and it left many older congregants feeling invisible and undervalued. Those who questioned the changes were often branded resistant or outdated. The mantra to reach the lost became a tool to push out the found. This dynamic deepened divisions and created a climate where traditional worship and devotionals were quickly sidelined in favor of contemporary formats. It set the stage for a wave of church splits, as well as the rise of what critics later called spiritual consumerism. The purpose-driven book had lit a fire, but it also burned away something precious. The full story of what happened behind the scenes is complex and rarely told. What exactly caused so many congregations to fracture while others flourished? The answers lie in the next chapter, where a new style of church grew into a powerful movement, but not without cost. Every revolution leaves its marks, visible and unseen, and the purpose-driven transformation for both. The rise of the purpose-driven model. Warren's strategy centered on a seeker-sensitive, market-driven approach that reimagined the church as a product designed to attract a particular audience. This wasn't a vague change. It was a carefully packaged philosophy borrowed from visionary pastors like Robert Schuller and Bill Hybels. At its core was the question, why don't unchurched people come to church? The answer seemed simple. Traditional churches felt foreign, intimidating, and irrelevant. Warren packaged his solution as a formula for growth. The ideal churchgoer was given a name, Saddleback Sam, a busy professional in his 30s or 40s, married, with kids, seeking meaning, but skeptical of church traditions. Every element in the church experience was redesigned with Sam in mind. Music, sermons, service length, even the coffee bar was created to feel professional, welcoming, and comfortable. Ancient hymns gave way to contemporary worship songs. Offering plates were swapped out for boxes. Long prayers became brief and informal. The goal was to remove barriers and make newcomers feel at ease. This model went far beyond just the look and feel. Churches conducted extensive demographic research, sometimes spending tens of thousands on consultants to identify their own customized versions of Saddleback Sam, Suburban Sally, Millennial Mike, or others. Every decision, from parking lot layout to dress codes, was tailored to meet the expectations of these target segments. The church became less a sacred space and more a marketplace designed to appeal to specific consumer profiles. The language around worship changed dramatically too. Sermons were rebranded as messages or talks. The altar became a stage. Clergy titles shifted from pastor to lead communicator or vision caster. Even age-old traditions like Sunday school and prayer meetings were renamed life development classes and connection gatherings. Communion events were given new names to sound more casual and inviting. This linguistic overhaul reflected the deeper cultural shift inside the church walls. While many younger congregants embraced the changes, veteran members often felt lost. Hymnals were removed or stored away, crosses and religious symbols were hidden or discarded, and architectural elements like stained glass windows were taken down. For many, these were not mere decorations, but spiritual lifelines connecting them to a shared history and faith. The market-driven approach dismissed these as barriers to growth, leaving longtime members feeling sidelined. Some churches even went as far as replacing traditional pews with modern theater seating, relaxing dress codes, and encouraging pastors to appear more casual, even wearing shorts and sandals during sermons. Loud contemporary music replaced organs and choirs. The formality that had defined worship for generations was seen as a hurdle to reaching seekers. It was a conscious decision to prioritize attraction over tradition. For those deeply rooted in the old ways, the erosion of familiar practices sparked confusion and pain. One woman in Virginia recalled suggesting her husband's favorite hymn only to be told it didn't fit the target demographic. After decades in the same church, she realized she no longer belonged. These stories were not isolated incidents, but part of a nationwide pattern where members felt erased rather than embraced. The rapid shift to a marketing mindset produced spectacular growth reports in some places, but also ignited simmering tensions. It became clear that attracting seekers while transforming worship came with a steep social and spiritual cost. Churches were no longer just places of faith, but arenas of cultural conflict, where identity and purpose clashed in ways few expected or planned for. This uneasy balance between growth and loss would soon give way to open conflict in communities across the country. Transforming tradition into marketing. The changes described by Warren's program went far beyond aesthetics and language. They fundamentally altered the meaning and experience of worship for many congregations. Music choices shifted from hymns to upbeat contemporary songs designed to appeal to younger, secular sensibilities. Prayer meetings became casual gatherings with less emphasis on intercession and more on social connection. These shifts left many longtime members feeling disconnected from the faith community they had helped build. Religious symbols, long cherished as sacred reminders of Christ's sacrifice, were progressively viewed as obstacles to newcomer comfort. Some churches removed crosses, discarded stained glass artwork, or rearranged sanctuaries to look more like auditoriums or conference centers. The underlying message was clear: to reach new people, the church itself had to shed its traditional identity. Sermons were deliberately crafted to be more pragmatic and positive, often resembling motivational talks rather than deep theological teaching. Pastors were encouraged to focus on vision casting and life application, sometimes at the expense of scriptural depth. This approach aimed to create accessible, engaging messages, but left some members bewildered by what they saw as superficiality. Even the titles used within church leadership systems changed. The word pastor gave way to terms like lead communicator or visionary leader. Sunday schools morphed into life development classes, deliberately signaling a break from purely religious education toward broader personal growth. Communion services, once solemn sacraments, were rebranded to sound more informal and welcoming. These linguistic shifts reflected a larger trend toward corporatizing the church experience. The result was an environment that prioritized marketing principles over spiritual heritage. Churches became branded entities competing for attention, membership, and resources in cultural marketplaces. This fostered a mindset where efficiency and growth were valued above tradition and communal continuity. The faith community increasingly resembled a product tailored to consumer preferences. Long-standing members who raised concerns were often marginalized or labeled resistant to progress. Some were given ultimatums to accept the new vision or leave, fracturing the unity of congregations. This phenomenon was described by Warren himself as blessed subtraction, the idea that losing resistant members was actually helpful to move forward. Yet, for many, it meant losing the very people who had sustained the church for decades. The price paid for this transformation was not just cultural, but deeply personal. Individuals felt erased, their spiritual contributions dismissed in the push to reach new demographics. Many found themselves spiritually homeless, faithful followers displaced by a strategy that prioritized potential attendees over cherished members. This human cost would become one of the most controversial aspects of the purpose-driven movement. As the marketing model reshaped tradition, it set the stage for conflict, and the story of how growth came at such a cost was only beginning to unfold. The conflicts and departures. The rapid changes sweeping through churches sparked deep tensions that were impossible to ignore. As congregations adopted the 40 Days of Purpose program and embraced the seeker-sensitive model, longtime members found themselves increasingly marginalized. Many who cherished traditional worship, familiar hymns, and the history embedded in their churches began to question the direction. Some voiced concerns, only to be labeled resistant, divisive, or stuck in the past, accused of standing in the way of progress and growth. These tensions soon erupted into more serious conflicts. Scheduled traditional services were canceled. Wednesday night prayer meetings were replaced with small groups focused on seekers, and beloved annual hymn sings were dropped for lack of strategy. Pastors coming back energized from conferences at Saddleback or Willow Creek often pressed forward with sweeping changes, leaving many members feeling disconnected and unwelcome. Stories emerged nationwide of faithful churchgoers being subtly or overtly pushed out. One pastor's letter in Georgia became emblematic of the shift. Members who questioned the changes were gently told that if they could not support the church's new vision, it might be time to find a place where they fit better. Behind this language lay a hard truth. Some churches were deliberately clearing out members who did not align with the new purpose-driven strategy. This phenomenon came to be known within the movement as blessed subtraction, the idea that losing those resistant to growth was a blessing that allowed the church to move forward unhindered. But on the ground, blessed subtraction often meant congregations hemorrhaged people and spirit. In Illinois, a church of 600 shrank to just 200 in a year and a half. The older members weren't leaving simply because they resisted change. Many literally could not hear anymore. Sound systems designed for loud contemporary music left them unable to follow sermons. In Florida, a family who had donated their land to build the church watched heartbreakingly as their congregation voted to sell the property and relocate to a strip mall. 40% of the congregation walked away. The human cost was undeniable. One woman from Arkansas shared how, after teaching Sunday school for over 3 decades, she was told her style didn't fit the new model. Offered retraining in purpose-driven materials, she felt all her years of service had suddenly been deemed worthless. This sense of erasure wasn't about progress. It was about people feeling pushed aside, their contributions forgotten, their faith community fractured. Defenders of the purpose-driven model pointed to numbers. Many churches reported rising attendance, more baptisms, and multiplying small groups. Saddleback reached 20,000 weekly attendees by 2005, and Willow Creek drew 24,000. Some congregations boasted growth rates of 30, even 50%. Yet these numbers masked deeper struggles within congregations that were rarely told publicly. The divisions unleashed by the purpose-driven movement were often hidden behind the promise of growth and outreach. What looked like success on paper sometimes obscured a painful reality where church families tore apart and long-established members felt abandoned. The emotional toll was real. Faithful believers found themselves spiritually homeless in communities they had helped build. Where growth was touted as the ultimate goal, many overlooked the fractures running beneath the surface. Fractures that would soon become impossible to ignore. As churches wrestled with the fallout from these changes, research soon revealed a deeper and more troubling truth about the seeker-sensitive approach. Measuring success. At what cost? In 2007, a study from Willow Creek Community Church, one of the leading pioneers of seeker-sensitive worship, sent shockwaves through evangelical circles. After surveying thousands of members, the church expected to see strong spiritual growth. Instead, the findings were sobering. Many attendees, drawn by contemporary services, were not deepening their faith. While they enjoyed attending, they were not consistently praying, reading scripture, or becoming committed disciples. Even more concerning, the most spiritually mature members reported the lowest satisfaction. Founding pastor Bill Hybels described the results as the wake-up call of my adult life, admitting that key investments in seeker-focused programs had not produced the expected growth. The study, known as Reveal, challenged assumptions that had shaped modern church strategies. Other research showed similar trends. A Hartford Institute study found that seeker-sensitive churches had lower retention rates than traditional congregations. Many attendees stayed briefly but failed to form lasting commitments. Initial excitement often faded without deeper connection or spiritual development. A 2008 Southern Baptist Convention study echoed these concerns. While attendance initially increased, giving per member dropped by nearly 18%, and volunteer involvement declined by 23%. Baptisms also lagged behind traditional churches of similar size, suggesting that numerical growth was not producing engaged, active members. Observers began calling this pattern spiritual consumerism. By removing barriers to attract newcomers, churches sometimes removed the very elements that foster commitment. With few expectations, faith became something to experience rather than live out, and many people simply moved on when something new appeared. By 2010, even prominent purpose-driven churches in California began closing or merging due to financial strain. Saddleback Church itself later faced declining attendance, leadership challenges, and denominational conflict after Rick Warren's retirement. The message became clear: growth alone was not enough. Churches were forced to reconsider what true success meant, and whether numbers could ever reflect genuine faith. From shiny auditoriums to empty pews, the cost of the purpose-driven movement would soon become clear, and the final reckoning for many churches was only beginning. The aftermath and lasting legacy. The aftermath of Rick Warren's purpose-driven movement revealed a reality far more complex than its once celebrated growth. After Warren retired from Saddleback Church following more than 4 decades, the carefully planned transition quickly unraveled. Longtime staff quietly left, and attendance, already weakened by the pandemic, declined sharply. The church that once symbolized a new model of growth now faced an identity and leadership crisis. Tensions deepened when the Southern Baptist Convention removed Saddleback from fellowship after it ordained women, including Warren's wife, Kay. This decision exposed broader divisions within evangelicalism, highlighting the struggle between tradition and a more modern, purpose-driven approach. Although Warren consistently warned against personality-driven ministry, many saw the church's struggles after his departure as evidence of its reliance on him. By 2024, reports indicated Saddleback's weekly attendance had dropped by nearly 30%. Transparency once central to its leadership, faded as these numbers were no longer openly shared. Former insiders admitted that while they had taught others how to build purpose-driven churches, the loss of clear direction led to fragmentation. This pattern extended beyond Saddleback. Several purpose-driven churches across the country closed or merged under financial strain, revealing deeper systemic issues. A corporate-style approach that initially fueled growth struggled to sustain long-term spiritual engagement. Metrics of success often overlooked the deeper commitment and health of congregations. Warren's personal integrity remains widely respected. He returned decades of salary, lived modestly, and devoted himself to global humanitarian efforts, especially after the loss of his son. Yet the broader model he helped popularize carried unintended consequences. By prioritizing accessibility and growth strategies, many churches gradually set aside traditions that once anchored their communities. For some members, this shift created a sense of displacement rather than renewal. Today, declining congregations and empty church buildings reflect a larger question. Can churches rediscover their core purpose before continuing forward? Rick Warren's purpose-driven movement changed American churches forever, for better and for worse. It sparked growth and inspired millions, but also left behind deep divisions and unmet needs. If this story made you think, please like and subscribe to explore more stories that challenge what we know. Your support keeps these conversations alive and meaningful.